This episode is brought to you by AWS Startups. AWS Startups supports entrepreneurs in Latin America across multiple programs, including cloud credits to help startups test features and extend runway, technical support to help optimize AWS solutions, and integrations with your product. They can also help startups build relationships with investment funds, accelerators, and companies to help your startup grow. We've invested in startups that AWS Startups team has referred to us. For more information and case studies from startups like Kavak, Wala, Nubank, Rappi, and more, check out aws.amazon.com/es/campaigns/founders, which we'll put in the show notes so you can find it easily, where you can access up to $1,350 in AWS credits for your startup.
Hello and welcome from Buenos Aires, Argentina to this episode of Crossing Borders with Nathan Lustig, where Nate has conversations with entrepreneurs doing business across borders and the people who support them, with a focus on those that have some connection to Latin America. My name is Josefina Dominguez, and I am an editor for LatimList, a proud sponsor of the Crossing Borders podcast. Sign up for our weekly updates on latimlist.com to get a summary of the week's biggest headlines in Latin American tech news. Nate's guest today is Caterine Castillo, co-founder and CEO of Neivor, a vertical SaaS platform that simplifies collections and streamlines management and communication between residents, property owners, and building managers. Magma Partners recently invested in Neivor as part of its Fund 3. In this episode, Nate and Caterine talk about the pain points of property management in Latin America. They also discuss Caterine's experience in finance and fintechs before becoming a founder, what it was like fundraising for the first time, and the differences they observed between the Colombian and Mexican market. We hope you enjoy this conversation with Caterine Castillo.
Hey, Caterine, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being willing to do it.
Hey, Nathan. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So where are you in the world today?
Right now, I am in Mexico City.
And it's a new move for you.
Yes, it is. Super excited about it. It's been amazing. So I am like super excited.
So tell me a little bit about Neivor. What do you guys do?
Sure. What we're doing is that we're building the Carta of the property management. So instead of connecting like founders, investors, and employees for equity management, we are connecting residents, property owners, and building managers in one single platform.
And so what does the life of a property manager, a building, and a tenant look like without you, and what does it look like with you? What's the before and after?
Yes, well, it's very impressive because when you think about like the whole thing, you must think about that like in Latin America, 40% of the population lives in condominiums. So can you imagine a building manager that handles a building of 1,000 units or 1,000 tenants? It's crazy because they need to handle the finance, reconcile payments, and they need to keep up with all the requests of their residents. And they currently do that like manually in Excel, through WhatsApp, or in traditional legacy providers. So it's pretty complex. And needless to say, when you think about the resident, then the insatisfaction is super high. Or tell me about any resident that is super happy with their building manager. It's super difficult to find one, right? And they are like pretty unsatisfied because they don't have transparency, they don't know what's going on in their building. So that's creating a lot of friction in their condominiums.
Yeah, I mean, in buildings I've lived in LATAM, the vast majority of them make you pay in cash or with check, and sometimes bank transfer, and they get lost, they don't get registered. You have to like take a picture of the guy receiving your cash so that you have proof that you did it, because if you can't prove it, they make you pay again, and they shame you in the elevator if you didn't pay. So it's a huge mess.
Yes, we're doing several things related to the payments as well. Currently, as you say, residents must make payments in cash in branch offices. So in Neivor, we allow them to make payments in cash, like in mom and pop stores, but very close to where they live, or with debit or credit cards, and also through wire transfers directly from the app. So it's pretty easy and convenient, and we are just providing different alternatives to the residents so they can pay in the most convenient way.
Yeah, and the other thing that has happened in buildings that I've either rented in or have bought apartments in is, I think probably somewhere between 10 and 20% of them have had fraud, where either they spend too much money on stuff that they weren't authorized for, or the guy just runs away with some of the money. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. That's pretty common in Latin America. And for example, in Colombia, like the annual meetings for the residents are done like just once a year. So you never realize that that's happening in your building because you don't have any other way to make sure that everything is going well in your building. So with Neivor, that's different because you have like the transparency about like the budget of the building and the expenses and what's going on. So we're improving that in a like super important way, and residents are pretty happy about it. We have found a lot of like resistance from some of the building managers that are in that side of the equation, but the good ones that are most of them are pretty excited about showing their work, because residents hate them, but it is not because they are not doing their work, but because the technology is not in place for them to show all the things that they have to do in a daily basis.
And talk just a little bit about where you operate and buildings under management, things like that.
Yeah, sure. We operate in Mexico, Colombia, and Ecuador mainly. We have over 3,000 buildings that operate with Neivor as their like software. And then we process a lot of payments inside of those condominiums, over $25 million per month in payments.
So we'll dig more into Neivor and the business in a bit here, but let's dig into your background a little bit. So where are you from originally?
I was born and raised in Colombia in a lovely extended family. When I finished high school, I decided to pursue a program in engineering, but then I soon realized that that wasn't for me. So I changed my career and I finished business administration, and then I did my MBA.
When did you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Okay, well, like since I started inside of the companies that I worked, like in technology and in the fintech space, I have always started projects from scratch. I really like to start projects, to create like the teams and see everything that you can build. So I think that I have had always that innate like passion inside myself. But later, when I joined Neivor and Paola and Oscar, my co-founders, invited me to do it, it was amazing. But I have always had that idea in my mind and I wanted to do it. But it was with Neivor that I had that opportunity.
Previously, you've worked in a bunch of fintechs and finance-related businesses. What's the biggest difference from going from working at a high level in those businesses to now being a founder?
Wow, it's super different because when you are a founder, you must be like a jacket of all trades. You have to do so many things that it's crazy, and you must be committed to learning to learn, because that's the only way to catch up and keep up with everything that you have to do. And when you are like kind of like working in this corporate environment, you have a role and you just have, let's say, to execute and create strategies towards that. But it's not as broad and as extensive as it is working like in a startup. So I really love it.
What were some of the biggest lessons learned from your fintech and finance career previously that influence your decision making today?
Well, I think like two things. One related to the fintech space is like, even though we are kind of like a software businesses, we are implementing and adding different layers with fintech functionalities. So based on that expertise, we are starting to do that. So that's pretty important because I have the expertise on that regard. But in the other side, I think like team management, because I have managed like super very large teams. So that has been helping me in this stage because we are growing like super fast. right now we are 55 like people in the team, and you need those skills in order to handle everything that's going on, because you are working in your company, you are building the product, but in parallel a lot of people is joining, so you need to know how to handle that amount of people that is joining, no?
So let's walk through kind of the growth. When we first met, I think it would have been about 9 months ago now, when we ended up investing. How many people were in the company, and now how many people are there?
18 in that moment, and right now we are 55, and we are hiring 20 more people that are in the business development teams, sales and marketing.
And what's been the biggest challenges of going from 18 to 55 and now 75 in under a year?
I have to say that since the beginning, Paola, Oscar, and we have been pretty focused on the culture, and we thought that with that amount of money and being a company of software, you must hire a lot of engineers. So since the beginning, we created like great foundations. So when you do that, it's much easier to scale and to hire more talent and to bring people on board. However, you're still having the challenges in place because you hire more people and you think like the problems are going to be solved immediately, and that just don't happen, because the people has a learning curve, and you need to understand that. So for us, the main challenge is how we can transfer all the knowledge that we have as a founders to all of our new like employees and people that is working with us.
And one of the things that was most interesting to me about Neivor when we first met, when we were doing the analysis on the business, was that you all had a ton of traction, but it was more growing kind of slowly comparatively to what it is now. What changed, or what are some of the things that changed that allowed this kind of like hyper growth to start happening?
Like the focus on the distribution and like growth model, because when Paola and Oscar, they were the ones that started the company at the beginning. They are both engineers with a master's degree in computer science, so pretty geek. So they don't care a lot about like the business side of the equation. So they developed a strategy that was relying on partnerships with different financial institutions and other distribution channels. So the company was pretty strong in product and technology. Currently, indeed, 60% of the company is full of engineers. But then when you join, and when we spoke in that moment, I was just joining the organization, and that was what I added to the team. Because of my expertise in business development and sales and marketing, I just added those capabilities to the organization. So we are now hiring a strong business development team and doing different strategies so we can scale like faster.
And walk me through the fundraising process. You've been able to raise from very good people and good funds over the past kind of 6 months or so. Walk me through that process.
Wow. It was my first time like raising capital. So it was pretty difficult because I didn't know anything about it. At the beginning, I had the luck of having two really good friends, Miguel McAllister and then Daniel Bilbao. Each one of them gave me advice and made me like the first intros that were like super important. And then we had the opportunity of talking with you, and then everything changed. Like you were like a catalyst like for us. So we really appreciate that, because after you joined, we were able to add to our cap table like super really good angels and investors. And that was a game changer for Neivor. Without your support and the Magma team support, that couldn't have happened like for us.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch we gave our support, but you're the one who's made it happen. We can't close the angels or make the growth happen. So it's been great to support you there, and I appreciate the kind words.
No, that's true. But sometimes you have a great product, a great solution, a market that it's underserved, but maybe you don't have the connections or the network in that space. And in my case, I had really good connections in fintech and in the corporate world, but not in the venture capital world. So this is what you added to our equation besides money, and that's been like amazing.
And so once you had some money in the bank and some more investors that were helping, talk about the decision to go to Mexico, because you're already operating at pretty good scale in Colombia and had pilots or operations in a few other South American countries. Why the decision to jump to Mexico? And then how did you decide to actually go there yourself?
Yes, like when we started and when I joined, I needed to add like the growth and sales capabilities to the organization because we had a really great product. So when I started to put like the team in place in Colombia and in the other markets, I saw that there was a lot of friction with the building managers and that it was harder than I expected. So in parallel with Paola and Oscar, we decided to open Mexico because of the market potential and some like special conditions that they have here. So we came here early with Paola, and then we were talking with building managers. So we wanted to really understand how was the market. And then because what we wanted to do was developing solutions that were like scalable. So even though we were like doing most of the development to meet like the Colombian market need, we wanted to make sure that some of those things will help us in the future for Mexico. So when we came here, we understood that the market was ready for disruption, that there were more like incumbents doing things here, pretty traditional companies of 20 or 25 years working in the market, and that the clients were eager to find a solution that really meet their needs. So we decided to change the strategy. So we tested with a few clients. They say, okay, I will do it. I will start using Neivor and I will help you with the tropicalization of the product. So then when we saw that, like after a month, we decided that we will move all of our efforts to Mexico and that I needed to move because like I lead the growth and sales strategy, I needed to be here in the market, talking with the clients and understanding really well what was going on. So we did that like super quickly. And now we have most of our efforts are here and we are super happy about what's going on, like the adoption with the building managers and the residents as well. So it's pretty impressive.
One of the things that I think entrepreneurs from South America have in mind is when they go to Mexico, that it's going to be extremely different to make sales, both in it, sometimes good and sometimes bad. What are some of the things that have been different good and different bad moving to selling in Mexico after selling in Colombia?
The truth is that I had so many ideas in my mind because everybody is telling you, no, this is good, this is bad, you should take care of X and Y. But then when you really come here and you as a founder that knows your product, that you are super passionate and you talk with clients, you understand that's not true. In our case, our clients are much more like receptive to the product. They are very open to try new technologies, which is different from Colombia, because in Colombia, all the work that we have done so far is about education. Why you need a technology to handle your property? Why do you need a technology to communicate with your residents? Why do you need a technology to make payments without going into a branch? In the case of Mexico, we didn't have to talk about it. What we just needed to do, it was just say, hey, this is our product and it's super powerful and this is what we have. And they were just open to use it because it's a much more educated market. So in our case, it was like really good. So I would say that you should come here and really talk with your clients and understand what's going on. And then you can say what are the good and bad things. And then you can take the decisions. But I don't agree with going into multiple markets without really knowing what's going on there. that's why we just decided to go to Mexico, really focus here. And then once we are done, once we do something like really good, we want to scale to other markets. This is what we think like for now.
Do you have any books, blogs, podcasts, or documentaries you like, whether it's about startups or just life in general?
I will say that for startups, like the hard thing about hard things, which is like super good. It is a cliche now because everyone is talking about that book, but it's a must for any like entrepreneur, because it has like really good tactics about how to hire, how to fire people, like and different stages of the life of your startup. So I think that one is really good. But the other that I will say is Lean In from Charlotte Sandberg, because it really empowers like female founders or women like as a whole, and create that awareness. Because sometimes what is holding you back is your own psychology. So I think that it's a really good one.
If you could go back to when you were still working as an employee at fintechs, knowing everything you know today, what advice would you give yourself?
I will have joined a startup or hyper growth company earlier in my career. It's like super fun. You learn so much. In parallel, it's super hard, but you really connect with that. You just have an emotional attachment with that. And I will say that I will have joined a company or started a company. Previously.
What's next for Neivor over the next year or two?
Just focus on Mexico, do something amazing, grow as fast as we can, and really delight our users. That's our obsession, and we are super focused on that.
Well, it's going to be fun to continue supporting you as you do it and watching you and the team continue to grow. Excited to do it, and we'll definitely have to do a round two in a year or so and look back on the growth. So thanks for doing it.
No, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for all your support. I have to say again, you were a game changer for Neivor, and I know for so many other startups in the ecosystem. So thank you so much for that.
No, you're very, very welcome. It's a pleasure to work with you guys.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Crossing Borders with our guest, Caterine Castillo. And thank you to Angela and Raka for producing this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with a friend and give us a rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's the best way to share what's going on in Latin America's ecosystem.